Ever stood beneath a night sky so clear the stars seemed close enough to touch? Felt that sudden hush? That small electric shiver? As if the world paused to listen? Our ancestors felt that too. Only they did something we rarely do now. They listened with every part of their lives. They read the heavens like a book, like a clock, like a map, like a storybook that could tell them when to plant, when to pray, when to fight, and when to crown a king. This is not a dry history lesson. This is a profound human story, curiosity and fear and hope, braided into patterns of light. Tonight, let's travel back. Let's sit beside those first stargazers and learn how they turned points of light into purpose, shaping entire civilizations in the process. Long before telescopes, before observatories ringed with domes and computers humming, there were people who charted the sky with naked eyes, steady hands, and stubborn patience. They sought order in the apparent chaos above. This quest for understanding was driven by fundamental needs: survival, meaning, and power. In the marshy fields between the Tigris and Euphrates, priests in Mesopotamia stamped clay tablets with star lists. In the deserts of Egypt, astronomer priests watched for Sirius to reappear and shouted the calendar into life. Across the Pacific, the Maya engraved cycles of Venus on codices and timed wars to its rise. In India, scholars wrote precise astronomical rules in Sanskrit. In China, court astronomers kept obsessive records of comets and supernovae. On high Andean slopes, the Inca aligned stone with solstice light. Across the ocean, Polynesian navigators memorized star paths to cross vast seas. Different lands, different languages, but a shared impulse. We are small, the sky is enormous, and if we learn its rhythm, maybe we can survive. Let's begin where people first began to write down the sky. Mesopotamia. Imagine a night in ancient Sumer. Mud brick houses, reed beds, a sky black enough to set a bowl of stars in. Here, priests became watchers. They observed the moon's phase change, they tracked planets wandering, and they cataloged the first visible comets and eclipses. Their clay tablets eventually became long lists, not just of stars, but of meanings. A certain planet in a certain place could mean a year of plenty. The wrong omen could mean politics, war, or doom. This was early astronomy stitched to divination. Numbers and superstition walked hand in hand. They created the zodiac, a way to slice the sky into 12 regular parts. And with it, a system that traveled across time and place. How astonishing! The order of the stars transforming into the grammar of human fate. But the Mesopotamians did more than prophecy. They measured. They noted the regularity of cycles and learned to predict, roughly, comets and eclipses. Their labor was steady, cumulative. Clay tablet after clay tablet, night after night, generation after generation. They even developed a sophisticated sexagesimal, base 60, number system, which we still use for time and angles today. And the sky answered back with patterns. Once someone noticed those patterns, civilization could plan around them. That is a powerful thing. From observation, a society builds ritual, law, and calendar. Sail with me now down the Nile to Egypt. The Nile is a river of time. It floods, it recedes, it feeds. Life there depends on its schedule. The Egyptians learned that a bright star, Sirius, reappeared in the dawn sky just before the Great Flood each year. That single celestial event became a drumbeat for their entire calendar. When Sirius rose, the year began. Priests marked festivals, farmers set seeds, the state measured grain. From myth to irrigation, the star stitched the nation together. The Egyptians treated stone like scripture. Pyramids, temples, shafts, and causeways were oriented with intention. The Great Pyramid aligns with astonishing accuracy to the cardinal directions. Inside its bones, shafts point, some say, toward particular stars. For them, tomb and sky were two halves of the same conversation. Death, afterlife, and cosmic order were contiguous things. You were buried facing a cosmic route, so your soul could find the path among the lights. Orion was not a mere picture. Orion was Osiris, god of rebirth. Star and story became one life. This intimate link between sky and state is not unique to Egypt, but the scale and ceremony there are unmistakable. The heavens marked legitimacy. They were used to coordinate agriculture, to mark time, and to give the ruler a heavenly narrative. A pharaoh was more than a man. He was a node between earth and sky. Further east, Chinese astronomers kept a different kind of conversation with the sky. For millennia, star records from China are some of the most continuous and meticulous in the world. Chinese courts kept astronomers on retainer. It was their job to watch and write. Eclipses, comets, and what we now call guest stars, supernovae, were chronicled with astonishing care. Why so meticulous? Because in China, celestial signs were tied to the mandate of heaven, a political philosophy that said the right to rule depended on virtue and divine approval. If an eclipse or comet signaled misrule, the emperor's legitimacy could wobble. Thus, astronomy and statecraft became one and the same. The Chinese devised their own sky division systems, lunar mansions and star ladders, and developed precise instruments like armillary spheres and water-powered clocks. Around the Tang and Song dynasties, these tools and ever more mathematical approaches polished astronomy into a quasi-science. What I love about ancient China is the civic tone of their watching. It was professional, institutional, practical, an early model of public astronomy, serving the stability of the empire. Turn now to the Indian subcontinent, where cosmos and ritual braided tightly. Ancient Indian texts offer some of the most conceptually bold ideas in antiquity. Sanskrit works like the Surya Siddhanta and earlier Vedic hymns articulate cycles that are colossal in imagination, ages or yugas that stretch into millions and billions of years. That is not metaphor. In context, it's a way of writing time on a scale that makes human life feel cyclical, embedded in vast rhythms. Indian astronomers measured too: shadow lengths, planetary periods, synodic cycles, and they did so with mathematical tools that required a zero, positional notation, and careful trigonometric thinking. Temples often encoded astronomical alignments. The same sky that told Vedic priests when to perform rituals also became a scaffold for cosmology. The nakshatra system, the lunar mansions, divided the ecliptic into sectors and mapped human life to lunar motion. In India, the cosmos was intimate with the self. Astrology shaped marriage, ritual, and duty. The sky taught people their place in the great order. Across the Atlantic, beneath dense canopies and steep plazas, the Maya developed a mind-bogglingly precise astronomical culture. You might think a jungle would be a terrible place for stargazing. Yet Maya cities functioned as full-time observatories. Their priests and scribes tracked the sun, the moon, and crucially, Venus, with obsessive accuracy. The Dresden Codex, one of their surviving books, contains tables for Venus's cycles that are precise enough to stagger modern researchers. Venus, for the Maya, was not a symbol of love. It was a thunderous, political celestial body. Venus's cycles were used to schedule wars, rituals, and public events. Imagine timing a launch of conflict to a planet's rising. That is a literal fusion of astronomy and statecraft. And their calendar system, the Zolkin and the Long Count, interlocked like gears, producing a temporal architecture that governed everything from agriculture to kingship. For the Maya, time and cosmos were tools of governance and identity. South America's Andean peoples, like the Inca, looked up and carved positions on stone. The Inca harmonized mountain, sun, and ritual in a landscape of sacred observation points. Their sun temples, terraces aligned to solstices, and the Seke system, lines radiating from Cusco to sacred places, show a mind for spatial order that read sky and land together. The sun's path across the horizon was a clock and a performative stage. On certain days, light touched a particular stone, and the community enacted a ritual responsive to that touch. It's almost cinematic, the heavens directing human choreography. And across the Pacific, Polynesian navigators did something different but no less remarkable. They memorized the sky. Without written star charts, they crafted mental maps, constellations as navigation nodes. Moving across thousands of miles of open ocean, they read stars, swell, wind, and bird flight. For them, the sky was a practical, living map. To know it was to survive and to reach new islands. This oral applied astronomy is a form of knowledge often overlooked in the West, but its true mastery passed down through generations of skilled voyagers. Take one more step back and we see a shared grammar. Constellations as story, planets as person, eclipse as omen, solstice as ritual door, cardinal alignment as legitimation of power. But the vocabularies varied. The Greeks, for example, are famous for translating star patterns into narratives of gods and human foibles. That tradition evolved into a version of astronomy that leaned more toward natural explanation. Pythagoras, Aristarchus, Hipparchus. These thinkers began to seek mechanical and mathematical reasons for the sky's behavior. Hipparchus cataloged stars and discovered the precession of the equinoxes. Aristarchus suggested a heliocentric idea long before Copernicus. Ptolemy later codified geocentric models, which held sway for over a millennium. Greece is the place where myth slowly began to share its stage with reason, laying foundations for modern scientific inquiry. Now, let's step back into certain themes. How the star stories map onto power, ritual, and survival. First, constellations and myths. Human beings see faces in clouds and patterns on floors. The sky is a giant canvas. And so it became a language of identity. Some constellations taught morality, others taught seasons. Take Orion, to Greeks, a hunter, to Egyptians, a god connected to life after death, to other cultures, perhaps a king, to some indigenous Australians, a ceremonial figure in a creation story. The same arrangement of stars spun multiple tales, each story shaped by environment, economy, and social need. That malleability is stunning. A single sky, infinite readings. Planets drew special attention because they moved. The ancient word for planet means wanderer. The fixed stars were fixed, a background. But these bright wanderers performed motion. Motion implied decision, and decision implied agency. What moves by intention must have intent. So the Babylonians and later the Greeks and Romans often saw planets as deities. Mars was war, Venus, love or doom, depending on the culture. Jupiter, kingship. In India, the Navagraha assigned personalities and influences. In China, the 5 visible planets linked to the 5 elements and broader cosmology. The Maya assigned Venus militarized meaning. So when a planet made a particular pass, it could be read as a god acting. Prediction became counsel. Counsel became statecraft. Calendars and rituals follow naturally. Agriculture forces you to reckon with seasons. The Nile's timing drove Egyptian life. Cycles of monsoon and river in other lands dictated seeds and harvest. Where predictable astronomical signs existed, societies used them to anchor rituals and law. The heliacal rising of Sirius, its first morning return, signaled inundation and thus structure. The Mayas' interlocking calendars ensured ritual events occurred at culturally meaningful intervals. Lunar Tithys in India guided festival timing. Even religious calendars still in use today, like Islamic months beginning with crescent sighting, trace ancient practices. These were not just spiritual acts, they were survival tools. The sky was a public utility. Temples and monuments are the sky-made architecture. Stonehenge is perhaps the most iconic, a blunt instrument of alignment, framing midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset. Chichen Itza's Serpent of Shadow and Staircase is a theatrical enactment of cosmic myth. Pyramids, temple axes, causeways, they are a language in stone. In places like Angkor and Konark, entire temple complexes encode solar and lunar movement. The architecture turns sky events into communal spectacle, an annual special effect that confirms myths, concentrates attention, and thus reaffirms social order. On certain sacred days, the entire community experiences a designed moment with the sky as director. And then there are omens, the sky's alarm system. Comets cut noisy, unpredictable tales across the heavens. Eclipses snuff a sun or moon in a heartbeat. For ancient eyes, these were not astrophysical occurrences. They were messages, often alarming. Chinese court records show immediate ritual responses to a comet or eclipse. Babylonian omen texts tie unusual sky events to the fates of kings. In Rome, strange skies could stir public fear, and rulers often had to respond with rituals, public acts, or soldiers marching to show competence. Eclipses, in particular, have a visceral effect. When the day darkens or the moon blinks out, the boundary between the expected and the unimaginable thins. Societies read that thinness as a call to action. Now, astrology and power, a deep and often misunderstood link. Today, astrology is sometimes relegated to newspapers and dating apps. In many ancient societies, it was a lever of political legitimacy. A favorable omen could be read as divine sponsorship of a ruler. An unfavorable omen was evidence against him. Babylonian astrologers wrote manuals. Chinese imperial astronomers kept records that the court used. Medieval European kings consulted astrologers for battle timing and coronation dates. In India, natal charts guided marriage alliances and official appointments. The sky, interpreted by experts, became a resource you could weaponize politically. Control the interpretation, and you can shape public perception. That is a sobering thought. Celestial language converted into human authority. Creation myths, how civilizations explain the beginning, often start with sky. Across cultures, heavens have the first lines of the origin story. In Vedic thought, cosmic cycles breathe the universe into and out of form. The papal view of the Maya narrates creation through trials orchestrated by gods, with the sky as an active agent. The Egyptian nun's watery chaos births Ra, who takes his place as sun god, rowing daily across the sky, beating back chaos. The Greeks move from chaos to ordered cosmos, giving names and narratives to celestial figures. These myths aren't idle fancies. They embed social values and cosmological structure. They tell people where they belong in the order of things. Two quick deep notes to make this vivid. First, Sirius and the Nile. Ancient Egyptians watched Sirius for generations. Its heliacal rising, the morning it first becomes visible just before sunrise, coincided closely with the Nile's annual flood. That flood carried silt, fertilized fields, and renewed life. It is reasonable to say that a star's pattern structured Egyptian politics, religion, and agriculture. Official calendars, temple ceremonies, and royal ideology all leaned on that cosmic rhythm. The star wasn't merely poetic, it was bureaucratic. Second, Venus and the Maya. The Maya tracked Venus with uncompromising precision. The Dresden Codex records the planet's synodic cycle and marks it against ritual dates and war. Leaders used Venus's schedule to plan campaigns and ceremonies. This is astonishing because it shows a direct link. Astronomical observation shaping international policy. The timing of war. For the Maya, astronomy was not a pastime. It was a governance tool. Let's pause. Imagine a world where the leader's legitimacy could be questioned because the sky blinked wrong. Imagine a temple designed so that light slashes along a staircase in a way that looks like a myth come to life. Imagine calendrical tablets asking agricultural communities to trust a star because it had done so for centuries. Each of these images is a human solution to the same ancient problem: uncertainty. The sky's reliability offered a remedy. When people could forecast, mark, and ritualize celestial recurrence, they could reduce collective anxiety. Laws built on that reliability endured. There are differences, too, worth naming. River societies like Egypt and Mesopotamia emphasized calendars tied to floods. Maritime cultures treasured star path navigation and oral mnemonic systems. Think Polynesian wayfinding. Nomadic or mountain peoples developed sky stories that fit mobility and landscape. Centralized empires, China, Babylon, Maya city-states, institutionalized astronomy because bureaucratic complexity benefits from standard timekeeping and celestial legitimation. Oral cultures often kept rich mythic systems without the need for stone or codex. Technology matters. The ability to record, to compute, to observe over generations changes the tightness of correlation and the precision of prediction. And still, across these differences, the human heartbeat is consistent. People wanted to know. They wanted to bind their small lives to something grand and regular. They wanted stories that explained misfortune and rituals that soothed fear. They wanted leaders who could promise continuity. Astronomy delivered on many of those needs. It was science, religion, politics, and poetry, all braided into the night. So what does this mean for us? When you step outside tonight and look at the sky, you are tapping into a long human habit. You are looking at the same patterns that people use to schedule harvests, to justify rule, to mourn, to celebrate, to declare war, to sing love songs, to design temples. The heavens are a shared archive of human meaning. Modern astronomy will tell you how galaxies cluster and how black holes whisper. Ancient astronomy tells you why humans once needed stars to be gods, clocks, and counselors. There is a final beauty here, the evolution of thought. From myth to math, from omen to observation, human minds gradually disentangled supernatural stories from regular patterns. Yet even as science unfolded, humanity's hunger for meaning remained. We still tell stories about the lights above us. We map them in constellations named both in Latin and in local languages. We are still, in small ways, the same stargazers as old. So tonight, look up. Maybe you'll see Orion. Maybe Venus will burn near the horizon. Maybe Sirius will wink. Think of the people who once read those signs the way we read text messages. They were not primitive. They were skillful. They turned curiosity into survival, myth into calendar, and observation into order. They made the sky useful, holy, and human. If this journey through ancient skies stirred your curiosity, tell me, which sky story do you want to dive into next? Do you want an hour on Sirius and the Nile, a deep look at the Maya and Venus, a tour of Chinese imperial records, or a navigator's guide to Polynesian star paths? Comment with the one that intrigues you most. If you liked this exploration, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more historical and scientific insights, and share it with fellow curious minds. Join me for the next trip, because the heavens are old, but our questions are new, and we're not done listening.